grabbing a lot of older users' data too, in really creepy ways. Because when one user earlier in 2024, again, anonymously, going by the pseudonym Monica, emailed Glassdoor's support team to ask them to remove some stuff that she'd written before. What they did instead was to actually take the real name that was in her email and attach it to her public account. Oh, not to mention her city too, just in case, anyone had any doubts about who she was, which they must have gotten from her job search locations, I guess. And the only way to get that data scrubbed, delete your account and every single review you've ever left. So Monica ended up writing an angry blog post about this. It blew up, it became a massive fiasco, and we then realized that this had actually been happening to many other people too. It all kept snowballing into headlines like, if you've left a bad review on Glassdoor, you may want to delete your account, obviously dealing a pretty shattering blow to both the company's user base and their security reputation. They probably should have double glazed it. Okay, the Nothing Company. You know the ones who make these funky, transparent-looking phones? Well, as a way to try and stand out in 2023, they decided to try and once and for all fix the iPhone-Android messaging divide created by iMessage. Or, to put it another way, to allow you to get blue bubbles on Android. They employed the help of another company called Sunbird, who created a system through which users could log into their Apple ID on their Nothing Android phone, and from then on their messages could be routed through an Apple Mac server farm to come across as official Apple iMessages. Nothing advertised the feature to include single messaging, group chats, live typing indicators, full-resolution media sharing, voice notes, almost the full iMessage shebang at launch, and importantly, that the messages would be end-to-end encrypted, so they wouldn't be stored on any servers. However, literally the day before the November 17th beta launch for this feature, Apple announced that they'd finally allow iPhones to support the RCS messaging standard. The one that Google had been prodding them to do for a very long time because it creates parity. Androids have RCS, so as soon as iPhones have RCS too, then it means that Android users, while still of course having green bubbles, will be able to freely text iPhone users and also have all the perks of modern messaging apps. Which means that overnight, Nothing's sole unique offering was now just beautiful new blue bubbles. But that's not even why Nothing made it on this list. Because when their app launched on Play Store, people quickly found out that it wasn't end-to-end encrypted like they promised. The app was actually sending all data unencrypted, and it could easily be accessed in plain text. The reasons are fairly complicated, but one easily relatable and frankly cartoonish example that shows the scale of the problem is that the app was using the HTTP protocol, not HTTPS. Any guesses what the S stands for? Secure. Nothing weren't actually the developers of the app. That would have been way worse. They're just the ones who published it. But that's still a massive problem for a phone company who needs users to place their trust in them, especially a new company with a lot to prove, like Nothing. Right, it's top 5 time. This is where you just kind of need to grit your teeth and bear the pain. Now, pretty much every tech fail I've ever covered has some sort of twist, like good idea, but poor management, or greedy CEOs, or shady business practices. However, in the case of the Humane AI pin, it was just a bad idea. It was all going really well for the first 8 months or so, with the company slowly teasing out details of this device that was the future of computing. Advanced AI capabilities, all controlled by touch and voice. They got a lot more coverage than you'd expect, and a lot more intrigue than most companies in their position, skyrocketing their value to almost $1 billion. It of course helps that both co-founders are ex-Apple executives. Everyone loves the story of an ex-Apple employee doing what Apple wouldn't. But let me tell you, whilst the resulting AI pin did have the polish and that unmistakably Apple minimalist design, unlike Apple products, it feels like in all the hype and the push to develop something different, the company forgot to ask the question, why? The AI pin did absolutely nothing that your smartphone couldn't already do, while still costing as much as a high-end smartphone would, with an additional subscription cost that would likely make it even more expensive than your phone, which can already do way more. I mean, technically you can wear it, so it's always around, but the thing takes so long to respond to your requests, it's probably still quicker to actually go to your pocket, take out your phone, and ask that instead. Essentially, I slated it, lots of media slated it, and then Marquez MKBHD stepped in to reaffirm that it is, in fact, the worst tech product he has ever reviewed. Feels like a 6 out of 10. I think long to respond to your requests, it's probably cost that would likely make it even more expensive than your phone, which can already do way more. I mean, technically you can wear it, so it's always around, but the thing takes so long to respond to your requests, it's probably still quicker to actually go to your pocket, take out your phone, and ask that instead. Essentially, I slated it, lots of media slated it, and then Marquez MKBHD stepped in to reaffirm that it is, in fact, the worst tech product he has ever reviewed. Feels like a 6 out of 10. I think the company will continue to exist, but once you've had a hype cycle and this much media attention, and then blown it as badly as Humane has, it's really hard to get that chance again. I think the company will now either be relegated to the specific niche of people who want phones but don't like screens, or it's going to have to be bought out by a bigger tech company who can turn the salvageable bits into a better product. Okay, so you remember that Glassdoor section that was all about very poorly handled consumer data? Well, at least that is still currently a what-if situation. Ashley Madison experienced the worst possible case scenario. And by the way, I still to this day cannot believe this is a thing, but Ashley Madison is the first ever married dating site. So you basically only sign up if you're in a committed relationship and looking for some secret side action. The tagline is literally, life is short, have an affair. So anyway, obviously due to the very sensitive nature of the
site, it claimed to have excellent security. Until 2015, when hackers calling themselves the Impact Team announced that they had acquired every last bit of Ashley Madison's user and employee data and demanded that Avid Life Media, the Canadian company behind the site, permanently take down both Ashley Madison and its related site Established Men, or else they would publicly dump all of this data. I mean, it's hard to have too much sympathy, but imagine being one of the 37 million users of this site, knowing that at any second your biggest secret could be blown and your life, well, even more messed up than it already is. Impact Team held a grudge on the site because of how it both trivializes and enables adultery. But the other reason they decided to attack the company was one particular feature that Ashley Madison offered. You could delete your account, but only if you paid them a $20 fee, which is slimy enough already. But then Impact Team also found out that the company was only deleting that data from the public side of the site. They were actually still keeping it internally, even while extorting their users to remove it. So what happened? Well, Avid Life Media refused to take the sites down, and Impact Team, they were not bluffing. They proceeded to flood the internet with post after post, 32.8 gigabytes of customer information, salary data, spreadsheets containing email and password combinations, revenue reports, source code, customer chat logs, all topped off with a new revelation. Keep in mind that the site is a scam with thousands of fake female profiles. 90 to 95% of actual users are male. Chances are your man signed up on the world's biggest affair site, but never actually had one. He just tried to, if that distinction matters. Oh, goodness. Well, I'm sure that 2015 was an amazing year for divorce lawyers, but I mean, another group who massively benefited from this scandal is other hackers, because people whose data was leaked in this breach have been receiving personalized blackmail emails ever since. Now, if you thought the crowdfunding Air Umbrella and the Lawn Droid were bad, then Xano Drones was an absolute shambles. This company were promising something pretty incredible. A palm-sized drone that did away with fiddly on-screen controls and instead allowed you to control it using really intuitive gestures. So moving your phone around to move the drone around. And it was apparently so stuffed with high-grade sensors that it could do it all. It could follow you, it could avoid obstacles, it could even lock onto your face to shoot selfie video for up to 15 minutes per charge. You want to know how much funding this project got? £2.3 million. It was the most funded Kickstarter project in the history of Europe. And unlike the Air Umbrella, which was a bunch of very carefully curated faceless demos, the Xano drone campaign seemed to come with loads of real evidence that it was being worked on, and real people staking their reputation on it. We'll get back to that last bit. Well, the first bit of worrying news was that Talking, the Welsh company behind the Xano drones, were actually uncovered to have previously been contracted to develop a military surveillance quadcopter, which they failed to deliver on after 3 years of funding because they couldn't figure out the infrared obstacle avoidance tech, which is the same tech they promised to deliver to the Xano, so it still didn't work. When people received their Xanos, they found out that while the obstacle detection function was on, all it would do is just fly up in the air a few feet and then land again, over and over. Yeah, you know, the sky was not the obstacle we were trying to avoid. And in the odd times where it didn't just flop around pathetically, it would suddenly go out of control, flying off in random directions until it was either out of range, lost in a tree, or embedded in someone's face. So Xano didn't even manage to achieve the base function of a drone. And then, because the Kickstarter was so successful that they ended up with 20 times the number of orders they were targeting to fulfill, it also means the company smashed all of their stretch goals. If you've ever used Kickstarter, you'll have seen that sometimes companies will promise extra features if they hit a certain number of orders. So yes, they had to fulfill all of those too, which they were clearly not ready for. The company was so strained that they ended up burning through their entire pot of cash to the point where they actually went bankrupt before they could even attempt to integrate many of the features shown in the original trailer, like gesture control and the drone being able to land back in your hand. Wow, that actually worked. It's like the least awkward thing on video. It's actually a bit of a shame that they never got to finish it, because I would have loved to see the end result of someone holding out their hand and a clearly confused drone accidentally landing on their head. But this project got just way out of hand, because in order to try and save themselves from bankruptcy, the company and the Lawn Droid were bad. Then Xano